Well, this what I have here is about a. I'm not doing all of it. It's about a 40-minute long lecture, and so basically what I'm doing is cutting out the intro and cutting out the outro, and just hitting the bullet points of why read literature. And when I say literature, I mean fiction. Um, and without getting into the definition of what the capital L is, the short version is if the author has won a Nobel Prize or the book has won a Pulitzer Prize or a National Book Award, you're probably in good territory for some decent literature, as opposed to pulp fiction or just popular dime store type romance or detective novels. So literature is a vague term to define, and I get into that in the introduction, but I'm going to skip that and just the bullet points of why read great fiction, shall I say, as opposed to biographies, histories, things like that, all of which have value. And a lot of this is based on personal experience, and some of it's based on actual research. What reading great fiction, great literature does for people. So I'm just going to hit the bullet points and go from there. So, literature enriches your life. Sounds lame, I know, but trust me, the amount of money and time it would take to gather the collected experiences contained in books in one's actual life is immeasurable and unattainable. The ability to sit back, step into some other person's shoes or mind, and travel to distant imaginary worlds and times past and future is what books provide. Those that attain the level of literature, capital L, do it better than the rest. Literature increases your communication skills. If it does nothing else, spending your time reading a lot of great literature helps you communicate your ideas in more diverse, creative, precise, and effective ways. Just the expanded vocabulary you gain from reading challenging works by skilled literary artists gives you an arsenal of specific, descriptive, emotive, and influential words you might otherwise lack. I ask my students, and again, I'm just a little aside, this is a lecture I actually give to my literature classes. So if any of this sounds like I'm talking to a class of literature students, that's what it is. So I ask my students at the start of each semester to raise their hands if they intend to get a job that involves writing and communication. Out of a class of about 25 or so students, 3 or 4 hands will go up. I then rephrase my question and say, how many of you intend to get a job? All the hands go up. And I tell them that is how many hands should have gone up the first time. Then I remind them any job beyond flipping a burger or slugging a shovel requires communicating with others, often in writing. If I still get skeptical looks, I simply say, any chance you might send an email at any time? Who wants to be the guy or girl whose email gets forwarded around the office or the whole company, or in a real life situation, the entire school district a few years ago, for its embarrassing display of functional illiteracy, vagueness, poor grammar, and bad spelling? Wouldn't you rather be the one whose communications, however inert, are polished, clear, direct, and professional? Increasing your communication skills through the reading and ingesting of great literature is one way, and I think the best, to do it. Regardless of your career, good communication skills come in handy. You cannot put a dollar figure on a large vocabulary and a command of a variety of modes of expression. Two instances that came up in my classes serve as examples. These actually happened. One year, a nursing student said to me, I'm in nursing. This is the last English class I have to take. What good is this going to do me? I replied, doctors and nurses deal with sick patients and their families. They often have to deliver unpleasant and painful news. Do you want to be the, quote, heartless, unquote, nurse that just spits out the cold, hard facts when the time comes? Or would you rather have a vocabulary and some choices in how to tell your patients the bad or possibly good news in a way that is sympathetic, compassionate, specific to their situation, and addresses them in that delicate moment as individuals with hearts and minds and souls? This particular nursing student had no more questions. That was at the college level. At the high school level, I had a student who was a semi-professional motocross racer. He said, "What's Shakespeare got to do with motocross?" I had to think on the spot. I said, "You're semi-professional, right?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "You win money when you win a race?" "Yes, sir." "Are there reporters at these races? Newspaper, television, radio?" I said, "Yes, sir." "Have you ever been interviewed after a race?" "Yes, sir." "How'd that go?" Without hesitating, he said, "Terrible. I stuttered and just told her some crap that our team owner had told us to say." I said, "Well, instead of that generic canned crap that every athlete says when they're interviewed after a game or a sporting event, instead of stumbling over your words and embarrassing yourself, wouldn't it have been better if you had been able to describe the race in a specific language and colorful, even, pardon the term, poetic terms, in such a way that it happened to be a very attractive blonde reporter who was interviewing this young man, just a little aside there again, said, wouldn't it have been nice for you to have been able to explain it or describe it in such a way that she not only knew exactly what you had experienced, but felt like she was the one covered in mud and catching air on that bike?" And he just nodded. And I held up my textbook and slapped it and I said, "Shakespeare, baby." One other favorite question of mine is usually addressed to the ladies in class. I'm not trying to be sexist, but, and I say this, ladies, doesn't it make you feel special when your husband or boyfriend tells you that he loves you? Maybe they say, "Baby, I love you. When I feel bad, I just think about you and I feel better." It's sweet, right? Then the next day he says, "Baby, I love you. When I feel bad, I just think about you and I feel better." And then a few days later, he says, "Baby, I love you. When I feel bad, I just think about you and I feel better." And on your anniversary, he smiles and mutters and says, "Baby, when I feel bad, I just think about you and I feel better." And then you get the point. What if, instead of all that, I mean, even after a certain point, even words as sweet as that eventually get a little boring. So, what if he looked you in the eyes and said, "When in disgrace with fortune in men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself, and curse my fate, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy, contented least. Yet in these thoughts myself almost despising, haply I think on thee, and then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. That's Shakespeare's sonnet number 29. Translation, baby, when I feel bad, I think about you and I feel better. So, whether you're an employer, an employee, a doctor, a nurse, a pastor, a teacher, a parent, friend, lover, or a motocross racer, literature can help you say precisely and effectively what you really want to say. Literature multiplies your experiences. Many works can take us into the experiences of other people, but only great, time-tested literature gives us the depth of insight into those imagined persons. Even the most fantastical of writings in the hands of a master can reveal a, quote, truth, quote, of human character that lesser written works do not provide. They may be entertaining, They may make us laugh, they may make us cry, they may make us think, but only on an ephemeral and temporary basis, and only if we are of the age and maturity to be accustomed to serious thought, to make us examine ourselves. That takes literature. Literature gives us new perspectives. Doing a one-handed page flip here, trying to keep the cat off my lap. He's over there. Seeing through the eyes of another human being is a rare gift, and the ability to do so is a rare skill. Literature enables us to do this. Having new perspectives can diminish prejudices. I know of no one who would openly admit the need for more prejudice and bigotry, except perhaps an inveterate bigot. If you want to know what it's like to be an African American male in the civil rights era, with all the social struggles, inner conflicts, rage, hope, doubt, dreams, mistrust, and faith, compiled with all the normal pains and pressures of just being human, then Richard Wright and Ralph Ellison have a few words in print for you. I would now add Ta-Nehisi Coates and looking at the books over here right now, Colson Whitehead, two writers that I've discovered just in the last couple of years. I would add their names to the list. And of course, James Baldwin. Oh my God. If you're looking for the same worldview, but from a female perspective, Alice Walker and Toni Morrison have written it. If you want to know, if you want the same cornucopia of emotions, but from a white Southern United States male perspective, with a little generational guilt thrown in, check out The Denizens of Yoknapatawpha County in the novels of William Faulkner. This is not to simplify or make light of the actual experiences of those writers, nor is it to say, read this book and you too can be Black. I'm merely saying that reading those works, engaging with them, reflecting on them, and comparing them to your own life is far better than sitting in total ignorance of what a life other than your own might be like. And it's doable. Literature helps us understand other people. It helps deepen our insight into human nature. It enables us to read the motives of people around us. Individuals who have read a lot of great literature have an uncanny ability to predict people's actions, to discover their motives, even to discern their thoughts. It's not magic. It's not some trick. It's not extrasensory powers. They've simply come across so many well-drawn, meticulously revealed, and perceptively created characters in books that when they come across that personality type, they feel as if they've met them before. And they have. Some people give this skill the mysterious name of intuition, and there may be something to that. But a simpler, less mystical explanation is that they have read a lot of great literature. It's no wonder that many psychologists, philosophers, and criminal profilers are very well-read individuals. I'm skipping around a little bit. Oh, yeah. Pathological liars hate people who have read a lot of great literature. Sorry, not that I have any personal experience with this, but when you've experienced so many character types in so many volumes of literature, and you find yourself in a situation where you're like, I've been here before, and you call somebody out. I'm paraphrasing. I'm ad-libbing now. Duck. when you call out a pathological liar, just be prepared to duck. They hate it. So anyway, literature expands your horizons. I have a whole other blog post that I wrote about this, where, and again I'm ad-libbing, where when you start off on a career of higher education, and your horizon is that big. You know, you're 18, 19 years old, and your horizon is equivalent to everybody else that you grew up with, everybody else who informed your life, most of whom probably were not educated. I am one of only two on both sides of my family with a bachelor's degree, and the only one with a master's degree. And holidays and Christmases and things like that make for interesting times because their horizon's that big and mine's expansive as far as what I know is out there. And literature helps us do that. So living with an expanded, back to the book, back to the paper, living with a expanded horizon, having sight that extends beyond what most others possess, and certainly beyond what you possessed in the past, is a priceless experience, one to pursue with zeal and to treasure with passion. And final word, and this goes back to my students. I hear this final word. I just don't get it. I don't get it. You know? I hear this complaint a lot, especially from my freshman classes. It's understandable. For many of you, as for my students, Shakespeare's Sonnet 29, which I quoted earlier, sounded like gibberish. When I read it to college freshmen, they're like, what'd you say? Bootless? What is bootless? You ain't wearing no shoes? What's going on here? And I just say, you don't get it now. And then I add, if it weren't gettable, then they would have stopped publishing it centuries ago. If it were boring, it wouldn't be in the textbooks. You know, nobody would be paying money to publish it and make films of it and all these things that they do with great literature. Reading great literature is more than just skimming your eyes across the words printed on a page. It takes work, it takes practice, and it takes time. But the rewards are worth the effort. I didn't, quote, get it when I first read Shakespeare or Chaucer or Faulkner, for that matter. And I thought the Scarlet Letter wasn't even written in English when I read it as a sophomore in high school. It made no sense. But with time, I learned the fault wasn't with me. It wasn't with Nathaniel Hawthorne. When I read it again 25 years later, it was suddenly one of the greatest books I've ever read. Nothing changed in those 25 years except me. The words on Nathaniel Hawthorne's book, the pages of his book, are the same for the last 100-something plus years. So every benefit I've written about and spoken to you about here is yours for the taking. It depends on how badly you want it and how necessary you see these skills and rewards in your life. All you have to do is open yourself up to the idea of reading great literature, capital L. Take the time, make the effort, and reach for a book. It's there waiting for you. It's been waiting for you all along. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.